Hello everyone. Today I will discuss about June solstice. Every year there are two solstices, one in June and one in December. The June solstice marks the longest day north of the equator and the shortest day in the southern hemisphere. In northern hemisphere, June solstice marks the time when the sun is directly overhead, the Tropic of Cancer. This is the year's northernmost latitude that it reaches. It resumes traveling south after the solstice. In June, the northern hemisphere is inclined towards the sun, so it gets more sunshine throughout the day. The longest day of the year is observed north of the equator during the solstice because of the North Pole's maximum tilt towards the sun. The extent of this effect increases with distance from the equator. The longest day is slightly longer than 12 hours in tropical regions, much longer in the temperate zone, and places within the Arctic Circle experience midnight sun or polar day when the sun does not set at night. On the other hand, in the southern hemisphere, the day of the June solstice is the shortest day of the year. The effect is also stronger the further location is from the equator. Polar night, in which the sun never rises, is experienced in some areas of the Antarctic Circle. Now let us try to understand why the day is called solstice. The area of the Earth's surface directly beneath the sun is known as subsolar point, which steadily moves along a north-south axis during the course of a year. It stops and starts traveling northward after reaching its most southern point at the December solstice until it crosses the equator on the day of the March equinox. It stops once more to begin its journey back towards the south at the June solstice, which represents the journey's northernmost point. The Latin words sol and sister, which means sun and to remain still, are where the phrase solstices originates from. The position of sunrise and sunset slowly moves northward in the months before the June solstice. It reaches its northernmost point on the day of the solstice. After that, the sun daily route across the sky starts to deviate back towards the south. The June solstice marks the start of summer in the northern hemisphere and the start of winter in the southern hemisphere. The earliest sunrise and latest sunset of the year are sometimes linked to the longest day of the year. However, in most locations, the earliest sunrise comes a few days before the solstice, while the latest sunset happens some days after it. The June solstice is not always on 21st June. The June solstice can occur anytime between June 20 and June 22, depending on the time zone. June 22 solstices are uncommon. The previous one occurred in 1975, and the next one won't occur until 2203. Now, let us try to understand why the dates vary. So sometimes it becomes 22, sometimes 21, and sometimes 20. Because a year in our calendar does not precisely correspond to the length of the tropical year, the amount of time it takes for the Earth to complete an orbit around the sun. The dates of the equinoxes and solstices vary. The Gregorian calendar used today contains 366 days in leap years and 365 days in regular years. However, the orbit of our planet around the sun takes around 365.242199 days. This indicates that the equinox and solstice gradually diverge from Gregorian calendar, with the solstice occurring annually around 6 hours later. The cumulative lag eventually grows to the point where it falls on the next date. A leap day is added almost every 4 years in order to realign the calendar with the tropical year. The equinox and solstice dates move back to the earlier date as a result. Variations in the length of a tropical year, the Earth's orbit, and its daily rotating motion, such as its obole, are other factors that affect the timing of the equinox and solstices. The earliest sunrise and latest sunset of the year are sometimes linked to the longest day of the year. The earliest sunrise, however, comes a few days before the solstice, and the latest sunset a few days after it. I hope that you liked the information about solstices. I hope to come back with more such videos in near future. Thank you.